Good morning and welcome to Andre the Podcast. I'm happy to have you here with me on this Thursday. I'm Andre Lacey and we're having a great Thursday so far. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday as well. Listen, today's show is quite an informative one. We're talking about history in the making, actually. Have many of you heard about the story of Moore versus the city of East Cleveland? Doesn't sound familiar to you? Well, let me tell you about it. This story is a story that took place in 1977. It was a case that took place in the city of East Cleveland and a housing ordinance that limited who could live together in a single family home. The law narrowed and defined family, excluding certain extended family members, excuse me. Elsie Moore, is that how you say your grandmother's name?
Inez.
Inez Moore, I'm sorry. A grandmother who lived with her two grandsons, who happened to be cousins, by the way, not brothers. At the time, the city's definition of family did not include this arrangement, but however, changes were made after a decision was held up in the Supreme Court. The case did make it to the Supreme Court, and it was ruled upon that the ordinance was unconstitutional. And because it intruded in the fundamental rights of family members, Justice Powell emphasized that the tradition of extended family living together is deeply embedded in American history. So it was important to bring on someone who lived this story and who can tell us more about it in depth. So please welcome Miss Robin Young. Miss Robin, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thank you. How are you?
Welcome. I am well. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well here. I'm okay. Yeah.
Good.
Well, thanks. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you could be here with us today. So I know that these were events that took place when you were a child. So there may be things that you remember, things that you don't. But tell us, before this became a Supreme Court case, who was your grandmother to you?
So Inez, as I could remember, just little tiny frame, but small and mighty, just very family oriented. I just remember always myself and all my cousins and my siblings. That's where we would gather. It was always about family. She was always about family, always about the community. Um, is as much as I can remember, she was as much as I can remember. She was, fighting some health things at the time because, just for your audience, I was 12. I was a little shy of 13. She died April 13th, 1983, when she died. So we live in the light of her. They still talk about her. I'm from East Cleveland, Ohio, and she basically, gave us the reason of why we should. It's okay to live with one another as family. And sometimes you don't see it, but that is why I know that is why in my city many are allowed to live together. It was because of my grandmother.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that's her.
Absolutely. That is powerful. I mean, it's not every day that you can say that your grandmother was a pivotal part of history that
Hmm.
made things better for us today. So that is so powerful for you to share with us. I also want to know, what was her home like growing up when you would go and visit or stay? What was the experience like?
So we lived right next door.
Okay.
So I honestly, she had a what would be a duplex home, one home on the other side. The cool thing about our house is that we could go through the basement to get to the other side of where she lived.
Hmm.
So, so like it was cool because like winter months, you didn't have to go outside and go next door. We could just go through the basement and be on her side of her home. So it was, thinking about it, it was a very large home. We lived where you would think, when you think about Rockefeller estates and things of that nature. So the houses were pretty big. And so she had a 4 bedroom on one side and like 4.5, almost five on the other side. So it was pretty enough room for everybody. So that was really cool. She had a little garden in the back, had sunroom attached to it. And she would just always, I could remember her canning things that, you should have picked up, but you didn't. I was just young. And I just remember her making like apple butter, things of
Mm,
that nature, just cooking and baking and gardening was her thing. That the memories really, as I do it, I see her. So as I tell you, I can just see her doing those things.
good. I'm glad those memories are still with you.
Yeah.
It's very powerful. I think just listening to you tell that story, as I'm listening to you, I'm myself
Hmm.
trying to visualize, okay, this is different than what I'm used to. So seeing
Yeah.
a duplex of that magnitude is quite impressive, if you ask
Yeah.
me.
Like literally, you would go on the other side of someone's house. So it's like, think about your neighbor, and you could literally be at your neighbor's house going through the basement. So that's
Wow.
what we played hide and go seek there because we had two sides that we could play, myself and my siblings and my cousins. So it was just a house that everybody, they say your cousins are your first friends. So
Right.
it was enough of us. So we definitely played. We definitely left a lot of memories there.
Absolutely. I bet that sounds really fun just thinking about it. Oh my goodness, y'all have a lot of memories that I'm sure you will never ever forget.
Nope, never forget.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to ask you this, and it might be more of a broad question, but then again, it might make you think about something that you may have not thought about for a while. Was there something about her that most people didn't know that was like a hidden gem?
Um, hmm, that I could remember. She just her hidden gem with her for me was her strength because what I remember is what most would see as a frail, tiny woman, but she had rheumatoid arthritis. So what I remember is through everything she persevered. So if I could, I don't know if you could see it, but her hands would be like this, and there was enough space to put like a spoon there. So she would still cook. She would still do things. So for that, I think is where a lot of us, built the strength. Like you might not feel good today, but then you think about, you know, your grandma who suffered rheumatoid arthritis and pain, and you think about those things, and you think about seeing her hands and seeing her feet, and it's a crippling disease. So she did it. Why can't you? So
Right, right,
that's kind of, the hidden gem I think that many would probably see as a weakness because you only seeing the outer, you only seeing a thin person. And she was actually persevering through, pain and disformity.
okay, okay. Well, see, that just shows how powerful and how far she was willing to go to ensure that her
Mhm.
family was able to stay together.
Yep.
So I appreciate you for sharing that with us. I know that's very personal. I do want to ask you this. Was there ever a moment that you can think of that she may have shared where she thought about giving up on trying to fight this situation and getting a resolution for it?
I don't think that was I don't, to be honest, I don't think that we knew the magnitude of what was happening at 7, 8, 10 years old. Now, my older siblings and cousins may have. Um, I never asked my mom that question that did grandma ever feel like giving up? But as I used to read, I don't think that was ever an option for her. I think that um, my two cousins that actually resided with her was more important for her to make sure that they had a home, a loving family and home to come to that she provided, than to ever think about giving up. And then when you think about being fined and spending the night in jail and those kind of things. Because if you look at my city today, you would not think of it in the manner that I'm speaking. So, because it went through the 80s, the 90s, the drugs, so it doesn't look like the city that I grew up in. Um, but I don't think that that was ever an option in her mind. When you think about someone who fought the city, then had to fight the state, and then had to fight, and then decided to no, it's not enough. I'm taking it to Supreme Court. So yeah, no, I don't think that that was ever an option.
I mean, I totally understand. I stayed up for
I think no is
hours
not in her
researching.
vocabulary.
I stayed up for hours researching more about this story because I wanted to come prepared. And she was charged. She
Yeah,
was charged for having your cousins there. So I mean,
yeah.
you make a valid point that giving up wasn't an option because
Mm-mm. I think the fine was what, like $25 or 50. It was some, I can't remember, but it it was something that people wouldn't think was a lot of money today. But you think about being fined $25 when the price of things weren't what they were today. That was a lot of money for her.
yeah, I bet.
It might have been 50. But I know it's between $25 and $50 that she got fined.
Okay. Okay. That wasn't specifically shown from my research to know the exact number, but you might be right with the $25 to $50 range. That's true. That might be true. I want to ask you this: do you believe your grandmother in her fight? Um, did she, or would you say that she had the strength to continue to fight, or did she think about maybe giving the fight to someone else? Because you did say that she, was experiencing her own health battles. Was there someone
Mhm.
helping her with all of this, or was it just her on her own?
Well, my grandmother had 7 children,
Mhm.
and they were all living and breathing at that time. So no, I think that they were totally behind, even if they didn't understand, or didn't think that she should. Um, it was just not a conversation that giving up or like what you're asking was ever mentioned. It was just that, hey, grandma fought for this house. And I think that Grandma Inez thought about the generations behind her and what it would affect. Even in her death, she wanted that home to um, be a safe haven for all of us. So that was her plan. Unfortunately, the house isn't standing today. But so that kind of is so sad. But the street is named after her, though.
Okay,
So that's a nice. It's
that'll live
named
on
Inez
forever.
Moore Way.
Okay,
Hmm.
all right. That is amazing, and I'm sure that you carried that with pride, and that future generations of your family will also carry that legacy with so much pride.
Hmm.
Yes, ma'am. So, did she ever talk about fairness, dignity, or faith as you all were going through this?
Well, we were raised Catholic, so my grandmother was she was Catholic. So faith was definitely at the forefront. That was just there. Um, she just always made sure that whatever it was that you wanted to do, you could accomplish it. So it was never I've never heard her say like you can't be that or you can't do that. That just wasn't something that I ever remember her saying. I think that she just enjoyed. I think the highlight was seeing her tree. I think I'm just learning how beautiful when you think about someone's legacy and their tree and how beautiful her tree really is. If it was having 7 children and then you have all the grandchildren, then yeah. So yes, sure, it's That's very nice. I just don't think that her thing was, you know, you just don't lay down and let anyone tell you, what you know to be true. So I think that that's where I get it from. I
Absolutely.
didn't have a lot of conversation, just I think just health, wise. But I think if she was here today, she would be extremely immensely proud of what she would see now.
That's very powerful. That's very good to hear. I want to ask you this, and this may come off as I'm sure she's wrong, but I am curious to know in more detail if you can. How do you think, or do you think that she knew that the decision of her pursuing this case would have such a powerful impact for not just your family, but for families throughout the country?
I remember reading, and I can't quote it. It was a letter that she wrote after the decision. And it was really, in a nutshell, to thank not just her family, but the people who never even knew her that would send, you know, well wishes and, keep fighting and those things. So I think that in the end, she knew that she had made an impact, you know, um, on the impact that people that she didn't even know, they didn't even live in the city or didn't even live in the state. So she was getting responses from um, people that it would have never affected because that ordinance wasn't in that state or city. It was in the city of East Cleveland, which happens to be a small city in Ohio. Um, it's on the outskirts of Cleveland, basically. And um, I just think that receiving that kind of feedback from people that you never would meet or never come across, I think that she felt like I would say she felt victory for sure, for sure.
Good, good. That I'm interviewing you, but I'm also processing all this because it's amazing how well one
It's amazing. A
person.
lot of people don't know though. Like, so I grew up not really. I can also say that it's not something that I shared a lot, you know. But when it comes to Black History Month, you know how you have those, not nationally known people, but a little nugget. And so that is how I got to you because I was having a conversation. And you know, Tiffany said, would you do a podcast? I'm like, sure I would. I don't know who is gonna reach or who it would help, but you know, um, seeing my grandmother being taken care of in a home that she fought for while she was actually very much now that I know, because I'm a hospice nurse, declining in her health, um, is why I really wanted to be a nurse. And I was only like 8 years old. That I could, I would see her being taken care of and reading the newspaper and looking at TV, and it was just like, gosh, this is what people do, you know. So it brought me a lot of joy to see her being taken care of in the manner that she was, and allowed to stay in her home that she fought for. Um, and it was our neighbor that was caring for her, and that's what I could remember. I see it. I see her bed. I see my neighbor. I see, I can see it visibly as I'm talking to you. So yeah, I think that she would be. I think that she felt victory, and I think that she felt like she did it not for just her. She did it for her city and for anyone else. She gave someone the courage to be able to fight. She did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That takes a lot. It takes a lot out of a person and even a
Mhm.
group of people. It takes a lot to get that done. So that's very powerful indeed. And to hear you say that you were inspired to become a nurse watching her,
Mhm.
I've heard many people say, including my own mom, she's said many times that nurses are earthly angels. And I believe that as well. It takes a
Mhm.
very strong person to, especially with what you do, hospice nursing, right? Hospice
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
That takes a lot for a person to do
Yeah.
because you're with someone during what is typically their final stretch of their life.
Right.
So we thank you for that. We give you your flowers.
Thank you.
Really do appreciate you. Absolutely. So thinking about it from your point of view, what does this case mean to you today?
I wish that today, I mean, it's extremely important. I am now a grandmother, so it's something that I know that I need to pass on. I know that I didn't talk a lot about it to my children. They knew, but we didn't have these big, huge conversations. And I think because we didn't have that home that I, you know, so loved, we were not living in that home anymore. And so that home was no longer standing. And so part of me, it saddens me to know that that home is not standing today. Um, but I think it also, I know that that's where I get my fire and my fight from, not the no's, not the you know what you know. And you're not letting people overshadow what or so it comes across sometime a little, some people might say, I'm very confident. I'm gonna say I'm very confident. And I stand in my belief system. And I think a lot of that comes from her. Yep.
Good.
So with that, I think, yeah, I think that looking back, I could have um, talked about it more. I talk about it more now as an adult, and the temperature of the world, so I just talk about it more now. And we just, nobody will know. You would have never known if I never would have had that conversation. So it's a talking piece, and it's a piece, my grandmother left something for people to research. You type her name the moment you begin saying Inez Moore. The moment you type Moore in, it says Moore versus East Cleveland. It's automatically that is my mom's mom. That is my grandmother. So that actually brings me a lot. I don't have to say much. I'll just give you the name and I'll let you read it. That's what a lot of times that's what I say. I got something for you to read. And so it also helps this younger generation to keep our Black history alive too. You know, there are some little things that's happened, that many don't know about, and she's one of them. She's one of them. They have to study her for housing. So her case is one that is actually studied.
That's
And actually, in May of this year, they're going to be celebrating her again. So back in Ohio. So I'll make sure I get you some information from there.
an exclusive, folks, an exclusive. You heard it here first. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll be ready. We will be ready. I'm glad that you felt comfortable sharing that with us. You get an exclusive right here. Um,
Yeah.
I do want to ask you as well, and you've kind of gone into it a little bit, but I'm curious. How do you want to or desire to carry this legacy on with your future generation of family members?
I think we should talk about it more. When just like we have amazing trailblazers, she was an amazing trailblazer in her own right. It's just that if you didn't live in that city or if it wasn't brought to you, you really wouldn't know. You know, a lot of people that I either grew up with or lived in that city doesn't realize that they're able to live with grandma and their cousins because of my grandmother. So what I want to do is, not only bring bring light to family and how important it is, and how important that, let's not sweat the small stuff, and let's get together as family, because this is who we are. It starts with your family first. Your friends is your cousins first. Your cousins are your first friends, and sometimes, you might be the only child, but you got cousins, and just it's just a family. So I think to carry it on is to um, talk more about her. People live on when you make sure that whatever it is that they left this earth with, um, they left the earth with something, and she left the earth with allowing family to live together, generations, in which how it should be. It shouldn't be just, a nuclear, just mom, dad, it should be grandma in there. It might be an uncle there. You might have a cousin. And little did people know was that my cousin mom had passed, so he had to come and move in, and my other cousin was already there. And so it was my cousin and his dad, and then my cousin and, you know, his dad had to come and move. Well, didn't move there. So it was that she was supporting a widower. When I look back, and so you have two cousins that grew up like brothers because of it, and maybe that would not have been. But I think if we just take a moment and just, you know, put away some of the, how they say, the childish things, and think about your family, um, is what I'll tell people. You know, think how my grandma Inez thought. She thought family first. You hear it, but she really thought it, and she really did it. So that's what I want going forward, and so I try to do that.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
definitely try to live by that.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and I can see it. I can definitely see it. We're getting ready to wrap up here. We have about a minute left, and I do want to ask you this question. And you can kind of share briefly. Um, if people today were to pick up a textbook, for example, and to read about this story, maybe the legal language, but also wanting to know more about who your grandmother was, her name, and everything like that, what would you want them to take away from this story and to remember?
That this was a woman with not a lot of money, so this wasn't about money. This was solely about the right of, this is, I'm paying for this. This is my property. This is my home. I have enough space. So, you should not be allowed to tell me who could live in it, right? Um, and that's it. You should be allowed to have whom you want to live with you. And especially if you have enough space, you know, um, and just know that, fight for whatever it is that you think, that is right, that is good, wholesome, and right. It's okay to fight for it. And you fight for it till you can't fight anymore. And it's okay to ask for some help. And I think that that's what she did. And that is why she was able to um, get her way to the Supreme Court. She didn't stop. So don't stop. And there are some people out there that has something legal ahead of them. And whatever that may be, fight it. If that's what your heart is telling you, it's not going to steer you wrong. go ahead and fight it.
Yes,
That's what I
ma'am.
would, yeah.
Absolutely. See, this is a very
Mhm.
powerful story indeed. I do have to say that though our time is winding down, I do want to
Mhm.
say that this story is so powerful, and I am glad that you felt compelled enough to come on here and talk with me about it. And I encourage all of you listening right now to go ahead and do your own research, learn more about this story, share this
Yes,
story with people that you know, because
yes,
it does leave an impact more than
yes.
you might think of. Absolutely.
Inez, Inez J. Moore versus the city of East Cleveland.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And
You
so
heard it
you
here.
Google
Look it
it.
up. Know your
You
history.
Google it, you will be there. If you're looking in legal books, it will be there. So it's there. It's there for it has an ordinance. It has a code. I'm no lawyer, but it has those numbers. It's there. She has a little mini. Uh, a group has done a little mini movie on YouTube about it. So it's there. She's there. She's there.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and thank you all so much for listening and being here with us today. Go out and do your own research and learn more about it. It's a very powerful story indeed, and we thank you for being here with us, and we'll see you next time on Andre the Podcast. Have a great day.
Thank you, Andre.
Thank you.